Welcome to Between Two Wetlands, the Village of Suamico podcast where we take a closer look at the projects and people shaping our community. I'm your host and village administrator, Alex Caker, and each episode will share the stories and details behind the decisions that impact all of us. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Village Clerk Michelle Bartoletti, where we talk about the upcoming spring election and give a behind-the-scenes look on how elections are run in Suamico. Please visit our website at suamico.org to learn more. All right, Michelle, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, Alex. Thank you.
And then, Michelle, before we get started, could you talk a little bit about your background professionally and how you've worked your way into becoming a village clerk?
I can. I started off in high school. I worked in the village of Howard for, at the time they called it a co-op student. And so I was working half days and going to school half days. And once I got finished with my school year, I did go to college, but I didn't really know what I wanted to accomplish. So I went back to work, and fortunately I was able to get a job at the village of Howard, and I worked there for 23 years in several capacities. My last capacity was deputy clerk, and what I ended up doing is I went back to college in my 40s, and I got a degree in public administration so that I could apply for this role in the Village of Suamico and qualify. So I've been with the Village of Suamico for 5 years and really enjoying my role here.
Of course. So today we'll be talking about elections, and we do have an election next week. We're recording this on March 31st of 2026. But I really wanted to have a conversation with you about elections in general and how they operate here in Suamico and really in Wisconsin, because where I came from in Pennsylvania, the counties handled all of the election duties. And so it was kind of an odd thing for me to come in here and see the first election day of like, well, why are we running elections? So it's not everywhere across the country where local municipalities run the elections, but that is how we do it in Wisconsin. So let's talk about it. So right now we're in that early in-person voting period. What does that all entail? How do people vote today?
So early in person is an opportunity for an individual to come in 2 weeks prior to the election to cast their ballot in the clerk's office and then have it delivered to central count on election day and counted in the central count facility. If you are not a registered voter, we are in late registration. What that means is you do have to register in the clerk's office. So during early in person, you can come in, register, and then you can also vote on the same day.
And you mentioned central count. What is central count? Does everybody have central count?
No, not everyone does have central count. I am grateful that we do have central count. It does allow us to pull us out of the polling location in a separate area where we process our absentee ballots, whether they have been mailed or if they were early in person absentee. We process those in central count. So it's an observable event, so observers can come in and witness what we do in central count. And basically, it's just opening those ballots, making sure that everything is as it should be with signatures and witness address, and then processing those ballots in the machines that we have in central count.
And so we're a week away from the election. Are people still able to request ballots via the mail? And if they can, should they be?
They are allowed to request ballots in the mail. The mail is a little delayed in what we've known from the past. So what we do ask people is that if they don't allow at least a week for the mail to be mailed back, that we do have a drop box here at our facility at 12781 Velp Avenue. The drop box is in our front area. It is under video surveillance, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. And you're able to drop that absentee ballot within that box. You are supposed to bring your own ballot and drop that off either in the clerk's office or in the drop box. But if someone does have a disability, they are able to have someone else deliver it for them. And those are the statutes.
All right. And then, so on election day, at least in Suamico, voters have 3 different polling locations, and they're all assigned to a specific polling location. How would they know where to go, where their polling location is?
So underneath our website, which is www.suamicowi.gov, it does have an area where we have maps. And within the maps section is our ward maps. You can type your address in, and it will tell you what ward you're in and where your polling location is. It's a really great tool. And again, if you ever have any questions, you can always call the clerk's office, 920-434-2212. And that way, we can help you with that as well. But you want to make sure that you are going to the correct polling location on Election Day, because we hold early in person here at the Municipal Services Center 2 weeks prior to election. So if you vote here during early in person, and then one election you want to go to your regular polling location, you don't vote here necessarily. You may be at the Municipal Services Center, but we want to make sure that you know where your polling location is if you want to vote on election.
So very important to check that before you come. Otherwise, we will let you know when you come in and you say where you live, we'll send you to a different polling location.
You'll be redirected, yes.
We do get from time to time some comments from the community about, hey, how come my ward is right next to Village Hall where there's a polling location, but yet my voting has to be done over at, say, Reforestation? How do you decide where people vote?
So every 10 years, we go through the census, and the census allows us to have those numbers, and we have to stay within the parameters of specific numbers within each ward. And if we're outside of those parameters, then we have to separate off and create a new ward or redistribute so that there's equality within the numbers for each polling location. So when we added the third polling location in 2021, that was to accommodate some of our growth, our new growth, that was exceeding our capacity for a ward. So we created the Ward 9, and with that said, Ward 9 votes here at the Municipal Services Center, but that also means our new polling location, which is the Reforestation Camp, the ski lodge, people will have to be directed to that location to vote. And it's just the numbers. It's nothing personal. It just has to do with the numbers and splitting those wards up appropriately.
All right, so you know where your voting location is, you show up on Election Day, you're going to get into a line, and there's going to be people working there. Who are these people that are working our election?
They're your neighbors. There'll be people because we've got over 60 election inspectors that were approved in December to work this cycle, which is the 2026-2027 election cycle. And the election inspectors, they train, they have a focus of wanting to work the elections and make sure that everything is done appropriately within the state statutes, and to make sure that everyone has a pleasant experience as they come in to vote and cast their ballot. But they are your neighbors. Predominantly, they are Suamico residents. You can work elections within your county, so you could be pulled into a different community to work elections, but you'd have to be a resident of your community or your county.
And you mentioned that they had training. Do they just show up a little bit earlier on Election Day, or what kind of training goes into being a election inspector?
So we have Badger books, and Badger books are an electronic poll book. So it is very, very important that our election inspectors have a comfort level with those Badger books, so that as they're helping an individual who's coming to vote, they're showing high confidence, and that goes to the voter then as well. They're confident in that technology. So we have a couple of training sessions prior to the election. We also have a training every public test, which we conducted our public test this morning at 9 a.m. Every election, there will be a public test to make sure that everything on that ballot is being tested so that it counts appropriately on our DS300s, which are our new our new tabulators. And we did Everything came out this morning for our public test, and after that, we do conduct training for our election inspectors that come to conduct the public test for us.
And then on those Badger books and even the tabulators, are any of those connected to the internet? You know, we hear that from residents from time to time. They're concerned about, you know, being attached to the internet and can
I mean,
both be
it's
manipulated. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's a valid concern. You know, with today's world the way it is a valid concern. But no, they are not connected to the internet. The DS300s have a modem that we modem through Verizon. It's a secure line, but it's also encrypted. And so all of the data that's being sent to the county at the end of the night for the results are encrypted through that line. The DS300s, the modem process is very simple, literally just sending it from the machine to the county through that Verizon line. The Badger books are not connected to the internet as well, but what they are connected to is to each other, and they are connected to each other through the modem. And the modem itself is only for the polling location, and we have 4 books in each location. So you've got a server that's fired up first, and then the other 3 attached to that server. And so they communicate to one another to give a polling number in sequence. So depending on who's coming up and registering on that Badger book, 1 may be issued here, and then over here 2 is issued. Same machine might be 3, just depending on how people come up to the Badger books themselves. But they do communicate to each other so that they're sequential in issuing a poll number.
And then, so polls open at 7 a.m.
They do.
on election day, and they're open all the way through 8 p.m.
Yes.
Take me through your process at 8 o'clock. What happens from then to the time that I can be looking on the county's website for the results, and then you see the Suamico results show up? What's that process in between 8 o'clock and seeing the results?
So we
show up
do
on?
call the polls open 7 a.m. and are open all day. At 8 p.m., we do put somebody at the end of the line at 8. And then if anyone came after that time, they would notify them that they were too late in order to cast their ballot for that election, that they had to be in the polling location by 8 o'clock in line, and then they would be able to cast their vote after 8. But if they're coming after 8, it's too late to cast a vote. Once the person that is in the line is to the front, then we can close the polls. We close the polls, we leave the door open because everything is observable. So if somebody wanted to come in and observe our closing procedures, they're more than welcome to come in. Or if they just want the results, they're more than welcome. We do close the polls, we print the tapes, and then we modem that information down to the county. And then we also have all of the paperwork that we have to go through. And what that entails is we have to count every ballot. We have to make sure that the number on the machine is how many ballots that we have in the machine. Once we have that full count, then we pull out the write-ins. All of the ballots that contain write-in votes are segregated, and then they're put in a separate envelope that's marked, ballots containing write-in votes that go to the county. As the county is the record holder for our elections, even though we conduct them, the county is the record holder.
And you talked about write-ins. So if people just wrote in Mickey Mouse, a bunch of people wrote in Mickey Mouse, and that got the most votes, would Mickey Mouse win the election? How does that work?
So years ago, we literally had to tally each and every write-in. If it was Mickey Mouse, if it was Donald Duck, we had to tally those. But as of late, we've got new legislature that just allows us to do the write-ins that are approved. So a person has to go to the county, has to complete their paperwork as a write-in candidate, and then the county would inform us of the approved write-in candidates. And then at the end of the night, we would tally those certain people if there were any of those written in.
Okay. And then I failed to clarify this. So if somebody has a ballot and they're mailing it in, if it arrives after election day, what happens to those ballots?
Unfortunately, in the state of Wisconsin, you have to have your ballot, absentee ballot here At the polling location, which is central count, because they're counted in central count, they have to be here by 8 PM on election night. If they arrive after 8 PM, unfortunately, they would be rejected.
And what does that mean? Where do those ballots that are rejected, where do they go?
So we do have a retention schedule for a federal election. That would be 22 months that we'd hold those. And then they would be properly destroyed, but they are not counted.
All right, Michelle, and so before we conclude, is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you thought our listeners should know?
Well, you do have many options to cast a ballot, whether that be to have the ballot mailed to you, to come in 2 weeks prior for early in person, or to come on election day. So you do have many options. Many times are available. Please check our website for those times. We are here this week, today and tomorrow until 4 for early in person. And then on Thursday and Friday, we're here till 5 PM. And that would be every Thursday and Friday prior to election. We have a statutory obligation to be here till 5. And then on Monday, before the election, there's only the clerks getting ready for election day. So there's no voting on the Monday before election. And then we'll open the polls at 7 AM on Tuesday, the 7th.
All right, Michelle, well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all that you do for the village, not only for elections, but beyond. And good luck next week.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's been a pleasure.